When you book to fly to Dubai, do you get to Dubai or do you end up at Dotito? And of course, passengers will consider the fleet of the airline. And let me say this with regard to today, that between the confidence that resides in any airline and the confidence that resides in any currency in any country.
Now that was David Coulthard saying you do not force trust on anything, the ZIG or anything. Trust is earned, is not forced. And he gave us a very, 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 very beautiful analogy of the ZIG and the airliners. So you might ask, who's this guy? This is one of the founding fathers of the MDC, together with Changirai. He was there from the beginning of MDC. So he's a very, very, very passionate politician. And he was the last Minister of Education, Sports and Culture. And he was saying, very, very, very nice things. So please listen to what he was saying of that analogy. Comment down below to tell me and let me know what you think of what he said. And if you agree with him or disagree with him, comment down below. Like and subscribe, guys. I see you're not subscribed, just you're watching. Like and subscribe so that YouTube can also show this content to all other people.
I would like to make two short remarks. They're both practical. They don't deal with the nitty-gritty of monetary policy. The first is this. As we consider any currency in any country, what is a useful analogy to judge it by? And thinking through this last night, I think the best analogy is to compare a currency to airlines. What is it about an airline which encourages passengers to use that airline? And if you go through the ingredients of any airline, I think that you'll see it's entirely analogous to a currency. Obviously, passengers, prospective passengers, will want to know who's actually flying the aircraft. Is the pilot properly qualified? Does the pilot have a long experience without crashing aircraft or putting passengers in danger? Is the person a sober-minded pilot? That builds confidence. Then, of course, passengers will consider the management of the airline. How efficient is the airline? What is its track record? Does your baggage arrive when you arrive? When you book to fly to Dubai, do you get to Dubai or do you end up at Dotito? And of course, passengers will consider the fleet of the airline. And let me say this with regard to today, that confidence in the fleet of an airline isn't simply built by an aircraft being new. Let's think of the recent tragic example of Ethiopian Airlines. It bought a new Boeing 737 MAX, along with other airlines. And unfortunately, that brand new aircraft plunged out of the sky. So confidence doesn't simply rely on the introduction of a new aircraft. I fly a lot, and I have to tell you that even now, I'm cautious about booking on any airline that flies the Boeing 737 MAX because of its checkered career. If you're following the fortunes of Boeing at present, you will see that one of Boeing's engineers just yesterday raised concerns about the design of the Boeing 787, their newest aircraft. The point I'm simply making, ladies and gentlemen, this morning is that there are comparisons to be made between the confidence that resides in any airline and the confidence that resides in any currency in any country. And it comes down to a single word: trust. That is the critical ingredient which differentiates between successful airlines and unsuccessful airlines. You will see that the successful airlines in the world are those where passengers have absolute trust in the pilots, in the management of the aircraft, in the maintenance of aircraft. And that is what sets apart airlines like Singapore Airlines and Emirates from much lesser known airlines. And let me say this: the trust is not built overnight. It sometimes takes years, decades to build trust in an airline. And it cannot be imposed. You can't impose trust in an airline on passengers. It is something inherent. And if you seek to impose trust, it won't work. Passengers will use another airline, or they may use a bus. They may even walk. The same applies to a currency. Now, continuing that analogy, in this modern world, for us to run effective cities and businesses, we need airlines. We need efficient airlines. And in like manner, we need a currency, a domestic currency. No one in their right mind, no rational person denies that. But there has to be trust. And trust is not built overnight, and it is not to be imposed. And Governor, the problem that you face is that there is an absence of that key ingredient at present because of the track record of this particular airline. Let me move to the second and final point, introductory point I wish to make, and I make that in the context of being the mayor of this great city. Because of government policy, our city has had to run its finances up until now using the Zimbabwe dollar. And Governor, I have to say, having been at the helm of the City Council for 6 months now, I can see the enormous difficulties that have been imposed on the City Council because of the track record. Because we have had to budget in a highly volatile currency that has appreciated and depreciated in the last year, it has created absolute havoc with the city's balance sheet. Our debtors in real terms have plummeted because they had debts in Zimbabwe dollars which have been diminished, and that's affected our balance sheet. We have low staff morale because our staff are paid in a currency that has fluctuated likewise, and which has very little purchasing power. And even in the context of our extreme water crisis that we face today, we have seen the massive problems that we have encountered as a result of the currency. Governor, may I use one example? It's a recent example. As you know, we have this water crisis. We need, in the short term, to rehabilitate pipelines and install new pumps so that we can draw on the money, on the water that we have at in Caesar and Limchabe's dams. And quite frankly, if we don't do this, the city is going to run out of water. Government allocated us $7 billion in January, Zimbabwe dollars in January. The reality is that we found it enormously difficult, if not impossible, to spend that money effectively. Suppliers of pumps which are made externally use hard currency. The same with pipelines. We have tender procedures that we have to go through. These are lawful, these are right. But what we found is that with the currency, even though it had been transferred into our bank accounts, because we had to go through these processes, we found that by the time we could finally nail down contracts for pumps and pipelines, that the currency that we had in our account had greatly diminished, and so we had to go through the whole process again. That undermines confidence. It undermines confidence of those of us charged with the running of a great city like this, but it also undermines the trust that businesses have in the new currency. Let me close by saying this, that if we are patriotic Zimbabweans, all of our desire must be that you succeed, Governor. That must be our desire. We would be unpatriotic if we felt any other way. But your principal, and may I say this on behalf of the city, your principal obstacle is not in explaining the finer details of how this currency will work. Quite frankly, that's over my head and over the head of most people. Your principal role is in establishing trust. And it's not trust in a narrow area. I come back to the analogy of the aircraft, of the airline. It is trust in who's running the currency. It is trust in the broader management. And an understanding that it's not simply the introduction of a new currency that builds trust. And it cannot be imposed on us all. But I know I speak on behalf of the city and all our residents in saying that we wish you well, and I hope that this meeting this morning is a productive meeting and we come out with a broad consensus regarding the way ahead. Thank you.